table into the GST. We might as well have continued with excise duty. In service tax, when we introduced service tax in 1994, we abolished this classification. Every service will have the same rate. Why? Because excise duty experience told us that you should not have classification. It's one rate, end of the matter. People will adjust. Some will have more, some will have less, but over a period of time it will get adjusted. But you've brought back now classification. Biscuits has one rate, chocolates has one. Now tell me, what is Kit Kat? Is it a biscuit or a chocolate? How will you tax Kit Kat? It'll go to the Supreme Court. This case will go to the Supreme Court. Lawyers will make money, and the Supreme Court judges will finally pronounce Kit Kat is biscuit or Kit Kat is chocolate. What is this madness? And now somebody said, it's absolutely true. You go to a general merchant, you buy Horlicks, you buy Atta, you buy some pencils, you buy a notebook, you buy a toy for your child, you buy diapers. General merchant sells all this. In small towns, in big towns, there are branded names. You go to that shop for this, that shop for that. But in small towns, tier 2 towns, tier 3 towns, the general merchant sells 500 items. And the homemaker, the head of the house, she or he goes, both of them go with a big basket on the 2nd or 3rd of the month and say, buy now 2 bottles of Horlicks, Brill cream, hair oil, this, that, notebook, etc., etc. Now the guy has to have the HSN classification next to him, the sales tax, the GST rates next to him, start making a bill. This is 5%. This is exempt. Atta, which Atta? Unbranded, exempt. Branded, 5%. Branded, 5%. Doormat, 28%. For doormat, what you put on the floor, the GST is 28% is what somebody told me. He has to make out a bill. Each one will have a different rate. Somebody said you can't make a bill with different rates. I'll have to examine that. But I'm told if you buy 10, 12 items, the bill is 2 feet long. How do you do business this way? And then they have now introduced the Anti-Profiteering Authority. In fact, the whole bill's purpose is Anti-Profiteering Authority. They could have called it Anti-Profiteering Bill. That is the whole idea of this bill. The idea is to keep everyone in terror. This government has no faith in markets. That's the conclusion that I've drawn long ago. They have no faith in a market. If Abhay Chaudhary and Ramesh Bagwe are both in the same business, let's assume that the earlier tax incident was 20%. All the taxes put together were 20%. Today, the GST is 18%. There is a 2% reduction. If Abhay Chaudhary reduces his price by 2%, Ramesh Bagwe has no choice. He has also to reduce it by 2%. Otherwise, everybody will go to Abhay Chaudhary's shop. That is market. You must have faith in market. If you have faith in a market, you will allow the market forces to regulate the prices. You don't have faith in market. As somebody said, if you start on the assumption every trader is a chore, the conclusion will be every trader is a chore. Secondly, tax is not the only thing that decides a price. Tax may have come down, transport costs may have gone up, petrol prices may have gone up, input costs may have gone up, electricity rates may have gone up, salaries may have gone up, rent may have gone up. Suppose your landlord increases the rent. You will have to distribute it among what you sell. So just because the GST rate has come down by 2%, how can you immediately reduce the price? And if you don't reduce it by exactly 2%, the anti-profiteering authority will be at your door. This is a monstrous provision. It should never have been introduced. We opposed it. And let me tell you, there will be a government which will repeal this provision. This is the kind of GST we've introduced. That is why all of you are very agitated. It's multiple rates. Classification has come back. The classification has no logic, no particular logic. Tell me, auto parts for two-wheelers is 28%. Auto parts for Mercedes-Benz is also 28%. Now, two-wheeler is the only mode of communication for the average person. Otherwise, everybody has to go by bicycle from tomorrow. Is there a public transport in any city which is completely reliable that it will take you from place to place in half an hour? Every city does not have a metro. Every city does not have a reliable bus service. There is a bus service. It should be expanded. It should be strengthened. Nobody is quarreling. But until then, and in small towns, 2-tier and 3-tier towns, how does a man travel? You go to a small town, not a very small town, even a middle town. You go to Nashik. How do you travel in Nashik? There's no logic in the rates they've put. This is the problem when you start with multiple rates. Then you'll have to justify each rate, which is why GST world over is one rate. So there's no justification, no exemptions, no concessions, one rate. This or that, everything is the same rate. That is GST. The moment you introduce multiple rates, you have fallen into the trap of classification. The moment you introduce classification, there will be classification disputes. And you will be spending your time. Half the time you will spend filing returns. Half the time you will send before the commissioner adjudicating disputes. We are therefore opposed to the kind of GST they've introduced. This is not GST. This is their own version of a tax. And they have empowered these officers. And these officers will, moment you give power to the bureaucracy, you can take it for granted the power will be misused. The less power you give, the better it is. Now on this e-way bill, I have not yet fully studied it. But they have told me, if you want to move anything from this building to the next street, you must have an e-way bill. Now how is it possible? And then I've just seen the rules. Checkposts are abolished. Just give me that. Checkposts are abolished, they say. Tollways will be abolished, they say. Very good. But what is the meaning of this provision? The commissioner or an officer empowered by him in this behalf may authorize the proper officer to intercept any conveyance to verify the e-way bill or the e-way bill number in physical form for all interstate and intrastate movement of goods. What is this? At least earlier you had one checkpost, fixed checkpost. Now you've got a moving checkpost. He can come anywhere and check you. Anywhere on the highway he can stop you. Because a proper officer will be authorized to check the bill. So he will come and stop you wherever he sees you. So instead of a fixed checkpost, you've got a moving checkpost. What is this? How can goods be transported if anybody can stop you and say, I want to check you? Maharashtra officer will check you in Maharashtra. Then you go into Karnataka, the Karnataka officer will check you. From Karnataka, you go to Tamil Nadu, the Tamil Nadu officer will check you. And you and I know what that check means. What is this? What is this you have done? What is this they have done? Is this the GST that we envisaged? This is not the GST that we've envisaged. We must unite and we must raise our voice. These multiple rates must go. These differential classifications must go. Yes, to start with, I agree. There has to be a zero rate. Some goods have to be exempt. But otherwise, we must move to a standard rate, standard minus standard plus. The rates must be capped at 18%. And all these compliance requirements must be done away with. Traders, businessmen must file one return per quarter, just one return per quarter on a simpler form. And all the powers given to stop movement of goods, all the powers given to state authorities, central authorities to interfere with business must be reviewed, and we must make life easy for businesses. What is the effect of what they have done? Demonetization killed you for about 8 months. Now this will kill you for another 8-9 months. And they are claiming that what they have done is the greatest thing they have done to India's economy. When demonetization happened, on behalf of the Congress party, I spoke and Dr. Manmohan Singh spoke. We said, this will affect India's economy by 1 to 1.5%. Just go and play that YouTube. I said it will affect India's economy 1 to 1.5%. In 2015-16, India's economy, according to their number, grew by 7.9%. In 2016-17, the year of demonetization, it grew by 6.6%. Fall of 1.3%. I said 1 to 1.5, bang in the middle, 1.3% decline in growth. 1.3% means 1,30,000 crore loss to GDP. 1,30,000 crore loss to GDP. Apart from 15 million people who lost their jobs. Apart from thousands and thousands of self-employed people who had no work for about a month or two. Headload workers, cart pullers, rickshaw pullers, farm labor, carpenter, tailor, plumber, electrician. They had no work for 2 months. They were all sitting on the streets. GST is going to affect us. The manner in which it is being rolled out, the manner in which it is being implemented will affect business. All of you know in your own businesses that business has fallen. Where you were selling for 10,000 rupees a day, you're perhaps now selling for 5,000, 6,000 rupees a day. Restaurant people have told me that their business has fallen by 50%. My hairdresser saloon told me business has fallen by 70%. It may pick up. I'm not saying it will be so forever. But immediately the impact will be there. That is because you're rushing through the GST. Why are they rushing through this? If we had waited from 2006 to 2017, would the heavens have fallen if you had waited for another 2-3 months? I said, give GSTN a trial run. Send all your officers for 2 weeks to one business establishment to understand exactly in the trial run period how filing the form is not an easy thing. Let the officer understand the trouble which the businessman is going through. Trade said, please defer it to September 1. CII, ASSOCHAM, FICCI, all pleaded, defer it by 2 months. Exporter said, don't put GST on export. Technically, there is no GST on export, but in reality, you have to pay the GST and claim a refund. Isn't that correct? You have to pay the GST and claim a refund. Earlier, there was no excise duty on export, straight away exempt. Now I'm told you have to pay the GST and claim a refund. Look at the increase in working capital that is required. You have to pay your GST today, only then you can claim input credit. Payment is today, you claim input credit, that will come to you 2-3 months later. So effectively, the final seller to the ultimate consumer has to have an increased working capital of 18%. Even the first seller, suppose he charges 4% of, let's assume the input is 5%. Suppose he charges 5% on that input or 18% on that input. He has to collect it from the buyer, pay it. The second fellow, he has paid 18% to the first seller. He adds value another 100 rupees. So it's 100 plus 100, 200 rupees. Suppose his GST is another 18 rupees. He pays 18% on 200 rupees and then he claims 18% on 100 rupees. So he has to pay 36 rupees and then collect 18 rupees. The next stage, assume for the sake of argument, 18%, adds another 100 rupees value. He has to pay 18% on 300 rupees, then claim input credit of 18% on 200 rupees. So everybody effectively has to have an increased working capital. Where will you go for this increased working capital? No bank is willing to lend anything anyway. You saw the number today. I had warned about it for the last 6 months. Credit growth is the lowest in 20 years. Today the number has come out. In 2016-17, 32 public sector, private sector, listed banks, total credit growth is 1.7%. Lowest in 22 years. India's never had credit growth of 1.7%. Go to a bank, let us see whether he lends you any money. Therefore, all this is man-made catastrophe, man-made calamity. If floods hit you, if drought hits you, if cyclone hits you, can't do anything about it. It's God's action. But this is man-made calamity, simply because the people in authority do not understand business. They do not understand the problems of running a business in India. There are other problems, everybody knows. All the places in India have got 24 hours electricity. Have all of them got broadband? All of them have got Wi-Fi. All the towns of